And we are back for another episode of the Fitness Podcast episode. I'm unknown. Again, I'm always behind with how many we're actually doing and when we're doing it. So this will be episode, whatever this is. So today we have a great coach on the line today. Need no introductions. So we're just going to get straight into it straight away. So, hey, James, how's it going?
Yeah, all is going well. Thank you. Hope you're good as well.
Yeah, not too bad. Thursday morning, which means that it's an off morning for me. So we're just chilling before we get into the day. And actually record the second podcast with the other guys in about an hour. So as always with the guest episodes, we are going to ask you a couple of questions and let's get into it straight away. So the first one is, what does fitness mean to you?
Cool. Yeah. So fitness, I think like we need to put the term on it, like health and fitness. And that's kind of like the big aspect like there for it for me. Sure, like we can all be, you can lift X amount of weight or you can run so far, but I think what it all dials down to is, what your health is. And that's kind of the push that I massively put on with my clients as well. It's that although a lot of people, we can all look fit on the outside, it's kind of like basically what's on the inside that's important, because that's, that's what you're living with long term. So for me, that's basically what fitness is. It's the health and fitness. And that's what the industry massively means to me. So when like for me, one of the reasons that I basically like got into health and fitness was, I don't know if I've like told you like the story, but I struggled a lot with like gastrointestinal problems from like an issue that I had with when I went on a holiday. I'll cut like that long story massively short, but long term and all is that I ended up needing to get my own coach because I couldn't make any fitness progression because I was so focused on the fitness that I didn't even realize the massive like importance that health played onto that. So, that's why I sort of like figured into sort of health and fitness. And that's what fitness means to me, a massive emphasis on health.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So define the two. So before you deemed what health was, what did fitness mean to you before that GI issue?
Yeah, so fitness to me was ultimately I started as a typical young lad, and fitness was let's look as good as you can, lift weights, get lean, try and build as much muscle tissue as possible. And for me, like my why back in the days of hitting the clubs was basically for to attract the opposite sex. But yeah, then as sort of life goes by, I massively changed like my views, and that's ultimately what's led me to, I think, I don't want to put myself on a pedestal, but being a much better coach. Having that view on health and the importance that it plays into fitness.
Yeah, isn't it so funny that as always as well, like when you go down that route of trying to impress other girls or the opposite sex, it ends up just impressing other guys for the most part, because they're the ones that are actually talking like saying, oh well, you've grown muscle tissue or you look better, and it's like, okay, well they're the ones that I didn't really want to say that, and normally the ladies are like, oh, what's that vein coming out of your arm? I just want you to be normal. And then now fast forwarding forward, like, so that was what you used to believe it is, but like, let's say day to day now, how do you what does that practice of health and fitness look like to an individual that may not be or looking to improve their own health and fitness?
In terms of like what, like my day-to-day lifestyle?
So in terms of like, so you're now focusing on health and fitness, what does that look like from a day to day?
Yeah, so I mean, you've obviously got like the typical, you hear the government guidelines, make sure you've got like your 5 portions of fruit and veg. But for me, I'm like well past beyond that in terms of my quantity consumption is far beyond that. For me back in the day, cardio was never a thing. But for me now, I include it just for my general health and fitness, not for any aspect of being lean or, just because it's good for me long term. And then like, my sort of like goal, if you like, is that whatever I'm doing now should be maintainable, that in 5-10 years time, if I don't want to change the way I look at all, that I should be able to maintain the way I look based on just what I'm doing from a health and fitness perspective, nutritional perspective every single day. And that's also like the crossover that I put into like my clients long term as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then when you're looking at like, so you someone was like in your position maybe a couple of years ago before this happened, like what would they see typically as like a less healthy individual like you were back then potentially versus where you are right now? What kinds of signs and symptoms did you just pass off and not even aware that that was happening?
Yeah, so for me, it was like obviously mainly like gastro. So, you know, day to day, just being like bloated, inflamed, a lot of water retention, like poor like stool quality. But I just didn't understand why that would correlate to, you know, me at the time not being able to build muscle tissue, or like why I was feeling tired all the time, or you know, why I was probably spending more trips going to the toilet than I probably needed to, and things like that. And then obviously getting into like having my own coach back in the time, it was a case of, you know, I'd been to the doctors before and stuff like that, and it was, oh, run the FODMAP diet, but you're not actually coached on how to do that properly. And if you just do like the, you know, the typical internet searches for anything like that, you'll have like the first page and you'll have like 15 different suggestions on how to do it, and they're all different with one another. None of them actually none of them correlate, so you're never really getting straight to the point like advice. And you've always obviously got then the option yourself to change what you're doing day to day. So you might take the advice from one page for one day, is that working? Don't know. And then you go to the next page and you try the advice from that. So sort of like, you know, getting a coach for me back then was like, nope, we're trying this one method, we're going to stick with that, we're going to run it through, we're going to see how that works, and then we'll make them minor adjustments as we go. And that's like then what led to improvements. So then things like my energy level started to improve, my sleep quality started to improve. I was taught more about kind of like routine and scheduling and like habit building, and then how that is also going to play and have an impact on like my digestive function. And then once all of these things came under control, within like the first year, I built like more muscle tissue than I had like the 6 or 7 prior, just from making some like, you know, simple lifestyle adjustments that are things that as adults, you know, long term, we should really look to instill and improve on, and keep them in, just for like day-to-day function in terms of our cognitive function, our energy levels, you know, stress management, how much all of them things like play onto our health. And then if we have like that fitness goal, if you've got like that good core foundation, you'll be able to get much better progress with your fitness goals.
Yeah, 100%. It's like it's trying to drive with the handbrake on, right? Well, that's how it feels for the most part. But you don't know until you've took the handbrake off that you were playing with the handbrake on, right?
Yeah, for sure, the whole time.
Yeah,
making little progress.
Yeah, crazy. I've had very, very similar experiences when like routines, you know, you're not hitting those routines, those structures, stress management, vegetable intake. Like sometimes you can eat well, or you can stay in the same body composition or stay the same weight, and things just drastically be completely different compared to like both sides of the coin. If you're eating even in a surplus, you're eating surplus of 2,500 calories, but you're making sure that comes from, you know, a large volume of fruit, veggies, and actual good quality sources, it'll make you feel completely different and act completely different internally than it would do if you're having 2,500 calories of Domino's. And I think in the industry today, and then the post that you put up was the thing that I've got 2 coaches with autonomy, and we speak about this all of the time, and you've heard me talk about it as well on the roundtable lectures, is you know, flexibility and eating food like that, in terms of when dieting is very popularized on MyFitnessPal, and you should just like, here's a coach and he teaches you how to use MyFitnessPal, and then he just like says, oh, eat 1,800 calories. It's like, that's not a coach. That's just someone that's teaching you how to use MyFitnessPal, which is a self-driven app. And you put up a post the other day about how that's basically how they will just teach you how to use MyFitnessPal, how to incorporate Nando's, and how to incorporate alcohol in your diet, and that's it. That's all they'll do. And that's what we see, a massive trend within the industry at the moment. And there's a completely different ballgame, right? Like even you're saying right now, the effects that you've had, if you were going down, but if you were going by that principle, then you wouldn't have solved the issues of having the handbrake on from your health, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even for me, it was, and still to this day now, because it's something I learned back then, which I'm still instilling in today, is going to the extremes of, I actually don't tolerate specific types of fiber well. But if I just had a calorie goal, I'd have never discovered that. But that wasn't the point of coaching. I think, like, yes, you know, a lot of people have got like probably a good clean bill of health, or they've not had any ailments before, and they're gonna, you know, give them a calorie target, fine, no problem. They can go away, hit that, and they'll get results. But sort of talking in that frame for everyone, you know, a lot of people are going to be looking at the people that are on just the MyFitnessPal and 1800, and they're going to be following the same principles, but they're going to get frustrated because they're not getting results. Well, if that person can do it, why can't I? It's like, well, we might need to actually just look a little bit deeper for you, like the reasons why. So like for me, for example, obviously big emphasis on health. I'll just give you like a little short spin, but I took a client on, you know, calorie goal, food lists, blah, blah, blah. Still not getting results here, but we've still got like digestive issues, yet we've increased like fiber intake, fruit intake. We've cleaned out a lot of like the carbohydrate sources. Let's run like a little bit of the FODMAP diet here. And it turns out like nightshade vegetables for this client just are not the one. So then it's a case of, oh, okay, well, you know, we know what's going to happen if you eat these foods. We're not saying don't eat them, but let's just be aware that if you have a week and every single day you're going to eat these foods, it's probably not going to turn out very well for you. And therefore that's going to have an effect on your health, and that's going to have an effect on reaching your fitness goal for that week. So if you can just maybe cut back on it a bit, it is going to help you massively. But to me, that's kind of like what the coaching is on like the health and the fitness aspects, because you can't really have the fitness aspects if you're not covering the basis of health. Because if we hadn't discovered that to the extremes of different fiber types for that specific client, then we're just giving them a calorie goal. It's not going to get them to where they want to be in like a quicker amount of time, but also they're still going to be struggling with these ailments years on years and years down the line because you've not discovered it and gone through the coaching process to find that out.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's a massive reason why we don't go as in depth all at the beginning with clients with like nightshade vegetables and different types of stuff, because a lot of people just don't know how shit they feel until they feel reasonably good at 70%. So, you know, we definitely use a lot of the principles around creating structure and routine and making sure people adhere to a decent level of like cover all bases. You know, we make sure that, you know, you can have a little bit of the chocolate or the X, Y, and Z, but majority of your day will be made up of great foods. And it's that element of, I'm reading a book at the moment about practice, just in general, by Seth Godin, and it's about, and he talked about how you just need to practice and get better and better and refine your own process. And we're not all the same individuals. And as much as the blanket statement will be hit your calories if you want to lose fat, or like you want to build muscle, you know, train hard, eat your protein, there's a large gap daily to how you're going to feel daily based on the processes that you practice daily. So if you practice just calories and targets, you're never going to understand the specific impact different foods have, and they do have different impacts. You eating a raspberry is different to you eating a dairy milk, and in the most simplest terms, like yes, it's overdone as a calorie is a calorie is a calorie is a calorie, which is fine, and I use it all of the time with my clients that are trying to lose fat. But if you're struggling or not getting the energy, the productivity, the digestive function, the resources from the food, then you've got a bit of an issue that you need to practice better or refine your system better to find the right things. Like I know for me, I can't have that much dairy, and I prefer having like soy yogurt as opposed to Greek yogurt just because it makes me feel better. And that's like some of the compromises that I've made. I won't go all the way into the changing of like proper vegetables because I don't really have a need to do so, but I will do the ones that really do make me stand out, like in terms of dairy will make me brain fogged and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll have a bit of milk with my coffee in the morning, but that's the only one that I'll do, and the rest of the time it's on the soy yogurt and whatnot. So you don't know, but it's more of an exploration, right? And that's kind of like why I've got you on here is because whether it's through coaching or through your own processes, you've had that explorative process that allows you to understand what's working for you, but then as a coach as well. So you know that explorative process is very valuable to an individual that goes through the process. Like moving on to coaching and stuff like that, like you're exploratively I can't even say it now, but how you explore with your coaching, how you're quite versed in and worked with a lot of other individuals and maybe coaches who are listening to this. What was the value in you going to seek and explore other coaches and how they work?
Yeah, for sure. So I can definitely say if I hadn't had my own coaches in the past, my own coaching today would not be at the level that it's at. Definitely, for sure. It definitely accelerated me as a coach, as well as obviously my own like personal achieving my own fitness goals. So like I said, I've been in the industry a while. I've been training for quite some time. little success, but not great. And then it was kind of the same like onto my current clients, that because I was making little progress, they were making little progress. Sure, it's progress, it's still steps in the right, in the right direction. But it wasn't until I had like invested in like my initial like first ever mentorship that I went into, what I'd learned in like 6 months just absolutely blew out the water what I'd like learned in 6 years just doing it on my own. But obviously, like, you still need to go through the process of like learning it on your own, because that's just the same as clients. Like if they eat a little bit extra, or if we experiment and we know that their nightshade vegetables for that client irritates them, it's still then them going through that learning experience and knowing what's going to happen to them the next day, what's going to happen to them in the afternoon, something like that. And it's the same for, learning as like a coach for like doing it on your own without like a mentoring experience. It's still valuable because you're still going to learn that way, and it's teaching you trial and error. So you're not always going to have every single answer for every single client straight away, and it's part of on our job to go and find the answer if we don't know it. But it's going to be a case of like, well, if I do have a mentor in the background, and I need advice on this client, someone that I can go to who isn't necessarily just going to give me the answer, but is going to help me discover the answer quicker. I think that's kind of like one of the key points of mentoring. It's not just being given the answer, it's being like shown how you could find the answer and come to the answer yourself. And then you can present that to your mentor and say, well, this is what I think that I should do based on what we've now discussed. And then they will say, yeah, I would do the same, or yeah, and you could also add this to it, or you could take that from it, maybe try like this approach. So like, still going through the process of learning and trying to find out, these things yourself, but then also having like the right guide to like start pushing you in the right direction. And it's being able to kind of like accelerate how quickly you can develop as a person as well. So yeah, like mentoring for me has been massive in terms of development and how quickly I improved in a smaller amount of time, and it's kind of like made me where I am today.
No, it's so true. I mean, I've had about 6 coaches and mentoring, and probably every skill that I've tried to develop, I've had a mentor. Whether it's golf, Spanish, Hindi lessons, business, PT, online, all kind of giving you different things. Do you think you have to go through a period of doing it by yourself to understand maybe the roadblocks that you get first, or would you like this is obviously we're moving into an age of mentors and people that will help you go every step of the way, and there's always someone that you can pay to facilitate that, right? Do you think there's going to be any negative ramifications of someone having a mentor all the way through a process, or do you think it's only going to be positive?
I think there's going to be like pros and cons to both. I can obviously only speak from my experience, and if I was to like rewind time, I would personally just go sooner rather than later, because I know if I had that initial 6 months that I did, let's say like 7 years in, if I'd have done that after a year or 6 months in, I'd have had like another 7 years of experience with that knowledge that would make me even better than I am today, because I could have applied them principles to the clients that I'd worked with over 7 years and done more trial and experimentation like myself. And I just that's how I would have done it. But yeah, I do still think that it's important to go like Lone Ranger at some point, because you then have to put your skills to the test, and then if you're not sort of getting the results that you want back from it, then again you can reassess and be like, oh, okay, well maybe I need a little bit more help now, so maybe it's time to go for a second mentoring or something different, or this is the area that I'm struggling in now. But it's definitely still worthwhile like honing your skills and trying them on your own. So it's trial and error. It's going to be for whatever works for each individual person. But for me personally, if I could go back, I would do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, me too. Me too. If there was online coaching before I started online coaching, then it could have definitely helped with a lot of people. But when we started 5-6 years ago, it was very, very new to the industry. Whereas now you could get basically a highway ticket to being an amazing coach by just paying someone for 6 months to a year. Having seen a lot of individuals go through, and you go through the mentoring of those, do you think there's any specific let's say successful qualities that you've seen along the board of different coaches? So like is there commonalities between them?
Yeah, always like a willingness to learn and openness to sort of being wrong and learning from that. So not being like afraid of failure and like putting yourself out there. So I remember on the first mentorship I did, we were like called up individually to like go through something, and that first weekend we were all like carrying away in terms of like, oh, I don't want to be the first one, but you know, by the third month we all, yep, I'm going to be the first one that goes up. So, and that just came from like uncertainty and that fear of failure, because if we got something wrong, it was like, oh no, that's not good. But as sort of like we developed and time went by, like one of the big qualities was basically that, you know, we were willing to have a go at things and understand that we might be wrong, and that's okay, because then we can learn from it. So like a massive willingness to learn. Like eventually over time, like that fear of failure definitely went away. And then like a lot of like consistency, just being super consistent, turning up, making sure that, you know, if a task was asked of them to be delivered by a certain time, that it was. So there was no kind of like delaying anything. It kind of works the same as like coaching when you do a check-in. You know, you've got like things in place and you're delivering on time, and that's going to like accelerate you in terms of, if you're definitely delivering, getting the tasks that you need to be doing, getting it done, then, you know, you can only be going forward. But yeah, they would be like the two main qualities.
Yeah, no, and then for the people that were you went to look for, in terms of those you were looking for a mentor, and you've had a few of those now, do you reckon there's a commonality between the way that they was able to rise to that specific standard? Is there, like, let's say for example, the three mentors that they potentially had, is there things that you look between the three and go, okay, they've all got passion, or they've all got drive, or they've all got this type of, I don't know, they all check in the same way, or they all speak to you in the same way? Is there any type of commonalities between those?
Yeah, they've all had mentors themselves. They've all been through the process of being a client of a mentor. So they know what it feels like on the other side, because they've already been sat in your seat. So they already have experience in terms of what they may have or may not have missed out before. So they can give that to you. So yeah, they've all had their own mentors before. They've all had their own coaches before. So that's definitely one of the big ones. Another one that I didn't really realize until like recently, but it still is something that amongst all the mentors I've had, is something that I've naturally been drawn to, is that they all have like strong like circles. So although like I've been to this mentor, this mentor, this mentor, somewhere along the line, all three of them are linked, like because they keep their circle strong in terms of they're all working with, and they're all in a lot of their time. They're in contact with other people. It's with other people that are always striving to do better. And because of that, it elevates them to keep going as well and up their game. So they're like continuously looking to improve. So even though like some of these people that I've had mentoring from are held like really high in the industry, not just from like clients like Gen Pop or anything like that, but it's like personal trainers as well. I know that these people at the top are still like pushing to keep getting better. They're not sort of holding themselves on a pedestal and saying, yep, I'm at the top of the tree. Like, that's great. They're like, well, you know, can we go higher than the tree? It's like that continuous drive is definitely one of the biggest ones. And then third, I would say kind of just more like understanding that we all start from somewhere, and they know that because they started from somewhere, like perhaps at a very, very low level knowledge, that the ability to kind of like work with someone where they're at. And obviously, if we're looking at like coaches and clients, there's a crossover, because you would start a client where they need to be started at. So like kind of looking at who have they worked with in the past? Have they worked with like enough people from like a mentoring perspective, that have they worked with someone like me before, in terms of like where I'm at education wise, like client success wise, business wise, you know, my mindset, just that you kind of like gel with them, so that they can like work with you from there. I've had like a few calls with some mentors, but I didn't sign up with them, just based on the fact that, you know, I don't think we would be a good fit. So you need to make sure that you're a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Not everyone is your kettle of fish, is it, or that you could be seen. And that's the beauty of it, is that there's plenty of people delivering the very similar messages but done in different ways, and people will be receptive to that as opposed to other ways. Everyone's got their unique style. Um, no, but I think that's very, very interesting. That's what I've seen within the industry as well, or any industry really, and the correlations between even working with mentors of finance groups, property groups. They all share this ability that they're all around people that are also elevating them. They're all in mentoring groups themselves. So there's like
Yeah.
there's levels to this. It's like, for example, if we were in a finance group and it was always like, oh, how to get your first £50,000, the mentors of that group would be in the how to get the first £1 million, and then the mentors in that £1 million would be in the £10 million club, or the £1 billion club, or whatever it was. And those that generally stay in those crowds and look to like go through the gears there will be the ones that kind of get fast tracked, because as everyone says, there's a specific layer of habits, there's a specific layer of processes that will give you a specific desired result. So if you've got habits of a £50,000 business, then you're going to have that. If you've got habits of 100k, same with fat loss. Is like, if you want to be 70 kilos, you've got to have the habits of a 70-kilo person as opposed to the habits of a 100-kilo person. And by going down and down and down, you learn what it's like to be 90, you learn what it's like to be 85, you learn what it's like to be 80. And the things that got you to stay at 90 won't, or even lose weight at 90, may not even make you lose weight at 70. The reality is that there will be different layers to it, which is always very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's really the endeavor to kind of learn and to coach and stuff. Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I love waking up in the morning and seeing messages from clients that are just successes. Like, that is like the biggest get up and drive for me in terms of like getting a lot of satisfaction from like your job and your work. That's like work wise, I love working with people and making them progress, especially if they've been like stuck in a rut before, and they're going from kind of doom and gloom of tried everything, not getting any results, and then just waking up to small wins. It's like, yes, it's going to be a great day. It's another one of them. We're all moving forward in the right direction. Let's go from there. Like outside of work, obviously, just like most PTs, coaches, I love training. So for me, obviously, I'm in my own good routine habit. I'm right now, like I'm literally like living and loving life. Even though in the UK, we've obviously been in like lockdown for some time now. But I was talking with my partner the other day, and we were scrolling through, looking through back like our camera memories, and just kind of like we've like really made like the most of the time that we've had. So even though we may have been cooped up, memories of like just being able to enjoy simple things like being in the sun, and like I love like getting out, like nature, like getting out and about. But yeah, so living life to its absolute fullest. So in terms of like getting up in the morning, get up and get living, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's I think you mentioned there about the small things. Often, just a completely tangent, but often the world of more has allowed us to not really take for granted those small things that you look back on your camera reel and you're like, oh my god, I did this, and in that moment in time, you were either present or you weren't. And for those that were present, the ones that you were able to take stock of, they were fantastic and it's great memories. And the ones that you missed out on because you were not present, feel like, oh well, that it's great to look back on it now because I realized what a good place that was. But actually, you realize, oh wow, like I probably need to take little bit things at a more mindful level, or a layer where you're just like, I need to appreciate this a lot more. Do you do anything specifically that allows you to, or helps you appreciate have layers of gratification on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, so you can enjoy the small things?
Yeah, so week to week, like own coaching process. So my coach sort of takes care of that part for me in terms of, at the end of the week, let's discuss like what your wins were. Obviously that are things that I put into my own coaching process, but in terms of like the end of the day, I follow similar to what, you talked about a couple of lectures ago that I'm a part of, a group that you're teaching, in terms of, at the end of the day, are you actually kind of noting and realizing like what you've done for that day? What are you grateful for the day that's just gone by? Obviously some people will do it like in the morning as well, but I think like, even if you don't necessarily have to write it down, but there is definitely power in writing something down, Because even if they, you know, a couple of days later you have like a bad day, you can look back and go, well, actually 3-4 days before, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I've got this going on in my life, you know, this relationship with this person's going really, really well. So that can be a little bit of power in writing it down, because it's something you can go back and reflect on. But yeah, like self-gratification, and something I do with my clients as well is like their month-end reviews, where it's like, let's actually look back and look at all of your small wins, because more often than not, if you're not doing that, the weeks can just roll into weeks, and the months can start rolling into months, and you haven't kind of got like that self-reflection of, you know, what you've been achieving. And if you don't really necessarily feel like you've been achieving much, then sometimes it's like you're not really that grateful for much. So they're definitely with that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think with that, it's a skill. It's the element of practice that will refine that. We're always kind of focused on the outcome, as most people were trained to think like that. So then when we get the outcome, or we get close to the outcome, it's like, okay, well, what's the next outcome? How do we get the next one? How do we get the next one? And that's great. And most people can live like that for a long period of time, but it only elevates you so much until you get to the point of that output, that the ones that you're chasing is higher and higher and higher, and it will reach a ceiling of where, you know, there's way more effort that you have to put in to get a higher level of output. And then when you don't see the output at the same rate that you did previously, you start feeling like you're not getting anywhere. It's actually just that the levels take longer to kind of upload, or you kind of upgrade, or you hit that threshold. But being able to practice the skill element of looking back and reflecting and being appreciative of the small things, and being able to review in a month and be like, these are the wins, these are the losses, these are the things that I need to practice or get better with, then that just becomes a better playing field, because you're almost like, for every push forwards, which we're inevitably going to do as a human, we want to make sure that there's something coming back, so that we're not going, okay, well, it's stuff this, it's 100% in the forward direction, or actually then you stop forgetting about the bird singing, or the sunshine that was yesterday, or the moment that you could have stopped and took a moment. Instead of that, you just focused on next, and then you live for that next moment, as opposed to the moment that you're in. And you could actually be having a very, very nice time in the specific moment, as opposed to always chasing that next one.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think with like us as coaches as well, like self-employment or owning businesses, because we haven't got like that supervisor or that manager, you can often like look past just looking at what you have achieved. And again, that's where like mentoring or having like another person, second view, second opinion come in. You know, even if you're only having like a mentoring call with someone, say like every month, it's just a chance to get kind of like that second eye, like, and you know, it gives you a chance to have like you know, another reflection, another review on kind of like what you've done, because you yourself might miss out on some of the things that you've accomplished. Yeah. So if we just go like super easy, like I had a call with you, and you know, I had some client case studies, and you know, we went through them together, and you know, even like there was pointers on you know, each one that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's another point I could probably bring in. And you know, it's kind of just always being open to like learning from like other people as well. And just like with the and like, you know, when you're taking up any type of like mentoring, you're also going to get like that person's whole level of experience, which might be completely different to any other mentors that you've brought in. And then again, you can level up like all your clients' reviews from there. Yeah, so massively helpful. So I will give you a shout out for that in terms of thank you for that call.
I think I appreciate that. I think a large part of also through that process is also learning about how other people react, and how you could react in those circumstances. Like if you're constantly stuck in the next, like I'm doing a poor job, or I need that next thing, I need that next output, you often miss it. But then when you do have a coach, or you do have someone that is kind of guiding you through that process, they almost like teach you when to stop, and they teach you when to look, and they teach you when to push, and they teach you when to pull in an area that you may not. Well, it's a level that you're trying to get to, because you're trying to get a mentor that will take you to that level. That's the whole point of a mentor. But at that new level, as you spoke about, it's like levels to it. So if you don't know how to stop and pause and reflect, which could be a massive byproduct of how you then take that next step forwards, or if they're like, no, you need to push harder, that gives you that layer of like, okay, well, this new step that you have to take, it's either faster or requires a different skill set than you've got. And that's when you start developing those things. And only when you truly get to that level layer, or those they teach you those layers, will you be able to take that next step forwards.
Yeah, it's also nice to be told that you're just doing a good job as well. Oh, by
Always.
the way, do you know you've actually done a really good job with these? Oh, that's nice to hear from someone else.
Yeah, no,
You might not necessarily tell yourself.
yeah, exactly. Because again, you're hard on yourself, and you think, oh no, well, it could be better, or it could be this, or it could be that. But actually, you're like, and I did this the other day. I always speak to my therapist on the podcast, but she's like, well, what factual information have you got to back up the claims that you're speaking to yourself in your head about? And I was like, well, not really anything. And she said, well, what is the factual information? And I basically went through the factual information, and she goes, okay, so you took them from A, and you got that person to B, and they improved on X, Y, and Z, and Z, and Z. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, that's your factual information, not the perception of what you thought about in a different life, or what you thought was a different meaning. Like, you took them from A to B, and that's all you can look at. You can look at the factual information and go, okay, well, this is where they started. This is where they are right now. Is that progress? Yes or no? Yes. And then that's where you then start making your own assumptions, or that's where you can take your assumptions and say, okay, well, that was a good job. Could it be better? Maybe. But in a world of where it's perceived to, like, you look on the gram, or you look at other individuals, and you assume that that's the learning, or the learned response that you need to have. You need to have that. Oh, but he did that with that person, or he did that, or that this is what I learned 10 years ago in my learned behaviors when I was a child about dogs, or about this, that, and the other. You then bring it to your own world in that moment in time. And actually, it's not about that thing at the moment in time. It's about you going from A to B. Or did you take that person from A to B? And it's like, yes or no. And then when you do that, you can stop and you can say, oh, well, actually, I did a damn good job, or I did a decent job, and maybe we can move forward from there.
Yeah, did a decent job. Is there anything I can or can't learn from what we've been through? Yes or no? And then obviously, if you've got another pair of eyes on it, if you say no, but then they might be able to pull up and say yes, and it's like, oh yeah, damn, actually, yeah, maybe. But yeah, you've still, been told that you've done a good job, and it does feel nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you've got some good stuff coming up at the weekend, right? That's going to be a large part of this. What do you have coming up at this weekend?
This weekend I have my first ever group client photo shoot. 8 clients are going, so it's going to be quite a big turn point for me. So that's what our call was on, if anyone was interested. I just wanted a second opinion on, I've got these 8 clients. These are their case studies. This is what I've done with them so far. What do you think? And that's basically what we ended up running through. Had some, like I said, some good pointers I think there was mainly 2 clients that I actually really took some good pointers on. One about, we've got a time frame in place here. They don't necessarily need to know the calories. They've got a goal in place. If we remove that from them, voila, started getting results again. And then another one was simply, well, this guy's another personal trainer. Let's go much harder with him. And yeah, we literally, before we started recording this, discussed what results did he yield and what's he got so far. And yeah, they're pretty darn good results. So
yeah, it's good. And those days where you do the shoots are unforgettable for clients and unforgettable for coaches as well. Like, I remember every single one of my client shoots, the moment when they look into that camera and see someone that isn't themselves, just looking in their bathroom mirror, muggy, and after a shower. So yeah, it all glammed up and ready to go is a fantastic achievement. So yeah, it's awesome. So you're gonna have very, very good fun there. So apart from that, I think that's it. A good conversation about that. I hope you guys like that. Where can they find you, James?
You can find me on Instagram at james.bestpersonaltraining. Obviously, if anyone wants to shoot me a DM, any questions, if you've got any questions about Nathan and his mentoring, I'll obviously be happy to answer them as well, if it's something you're interested in maybe considering yourself now.
Appreciate that. And what just for people that are interested about you as your coaching, what do you specialize in?
So typically, we throw the word around gen pop, but everyone is general population, right? But people, or if you're out there yourself and you've just got no idea where to start, how to start, and you are looking for like more stability, structure, and routine, and you want to put foundations in place first before moving into a fat loss journey to hold you for sustainability for the rest of your life, that's what I work with.
Fair enough. That's awesome. That's if anyone wants to check that out, that's he just mentioned his Instagram, and I would definitely highly recommend him as well. So thank you, James, for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it, and chat to you soon.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.